Speaking of moving on from Yu-Gi-Oh! Hey, how's it going? My name is Renu, and today we're going to be talking about a new card and strategy game that I've been getting into lately, and that's Cards and Castles 2. Cards and Castles 2 is a cross-platform, free-to-play collectible card game with a tactics twist, and it's a ton of fun. Thank you Red Team Games for sponsoring this video. Not only did Red Team Games introduce me to this fun game of theirs, but they also gave me a promo code that you guys can use to redeem 5 free booster packs. Go ahead and redeem the code REDNEW when you check out this game. Not only would it help me out a ton, but the game's free, you're gonna have a lot of fun, and we're gonna figure out how with this review. If you're like me and you're a fan of card and strategy games, then Cards and Castles 2 is a very good one to check out. Not only is it very free to play friendly, but it's rich with different classes and strategies for each class. It's also really simple and easy to hop into, and it has a ton of depth and some of the most user-friendly features I've seen in this genre that you can use to truly limit test your deck building skills. But what is Cards and Castles 2 really? Cards and Castles 2 has a lot of similarities with some popular card games that you probably know. I would say that the card and overall gameplay design is heavily inspired from Hearthstone. Each card costs gold to play, with maximum gold accumulating by 1 each turn. The effects are also pretty similarly worded as well. Warcry effects activate as soon as units are played, and you have a lot of other familiar keywords like Last Will, which activates when a unit dies. Now, the twist is that this game doesn't have you play these cards on a Hearthstone board. You play your cards and summon your units onto a battlefield that resembles a tactics game. Think Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics if you ever played those. If you've explored a ton of strategy or card games like I have, you would probably draw a lot of parallels to Faeria or Duelist as well. They're very similar in concept, but Cards and Castles 2 has a ton of big differences from all of those games that make it stand out very well. One thing that clearly stands out is its art style. Cards and Castles 2 embraces a very comical and wacky art style that reminds me of online webcomics and other franchises like Castle Crashers or Cyanide and Happiness. It's a very comfy and funny style, and I think it reflects a lot of the game's design and intent. To me at least, it feels very intentional that Cards and Castles 2 is meant to be very approachable and easy to hop into. Normally, when you look at a game like Faeria or Duelist, a lot of players can be easily intimidated by their mechanics. These games feel like they were designed to provide a challenge when trying to learn and master them. Cards and Castles 2, on the other hand, exists way on the other end of that spectrum. It's so simple to hop into the game and learn everything you need to right off the bat. Let's start with the object of the game. The goal of Cards and Castles 2 is simple. Destroy the enemy castle before they destroy yours. Castles have 25 health to start with, and it's up to you to deploy units and cast spells on the battlefield in order to deal enough damage to the enemy castle and win the game. Every one of your turns, you accumulate 1 max gold. Each card costs gold to play, so turn-by-turn interactions are guaranteed and nobody can instantly win in 1 turn. Unlike some other games I know, there is one little building for each player called a supply depot that gives you a card if you destroy the one belonging to your opponent. As well, your castle has an ability to summon a weak peasant once per turn at the cost of 2 gold. This ability basically ensures that from turns 2 and on, that there's no way for you to have absolutely nothing to do, which I think is pretty nice. Each unit has summoning sickness, meaning it can't move or attack on the turn they're summoned, and an attack and health stat. When units do battle, it works very similarly to Hearthstone in that units don't heal damage at the end of combat like in Magic, and both units attack each other at the same time. And that's pretty much it. The game itself and the mechanics are very simple. If you notice, the board size itself is a 5x8 grid, and the castles themselves are basically within a turn's reach. You can summon a unit anywhere on your half of the grid, and since every unit can move up to 2 spaces, that means that there are 3 spots you can deploy units in for them to be able to move and attack the enemy's castle within a single turn. This is nothing like Feyria or Duelist. In Feyria, you have to slowly build a bridge to your opponent before you beat the stuffing out of him with tiles that can take various forms and all have different effects. And in Duelist, the objective is the enemy commander who can move and has their own special ability and attacks to consider. There's nothing like mana wells, which exists in both of those games, to vie for control over. And I think this simplification is actually indicative of Cards and Castles 2 and what it's trying to do. Instead of introducing so many different puzzles and challenges that the player has to load onto their mental stack on top of contending with their opponent, Cards and Castles 2 takes a much simpler and direct approach and just lets you fight with your opponent. The two players are put in such close proximity that you can practically smell them. As I said earlier, all you need to do is summon in one of the 3 front tiles, and after a turn to wait out the summoning sickness, that unit can just walk up to the opponent's castle and do damage. There's no barrier, and very little other things to consider. The game doesn't get in the way of the dialogue that's meant to exist between both players. The only time the tiles and positioning is really relevant is when the players themselves place the obstacles or hide away their precious buildings or units behind their castle. The puzzles are player made, and the puzzles are player solved. And I think that kind of straightforward approach makes for a very engaging game. And while this approach is simple by design, it doesn't necessarily sacrifice depth. When it comes to deck building, this game has a lot going on. You have 7 different classes to pick from, but get this, unlike in Hearthstone or Shadowverse, you can pick 2. So when you're making your deck, you can pick the unique cards from either of those 2 classes and from the neutral pool of cards. That is a lot of options. The 7 classes are Vikings, Crusaders, Warlocks, Pirates, Ninjas, Druids, and Undead. So let's go over them very quickly. Vikings have a lot of Vikings, big, hulking, brutish, battle-crazed machines of destruction. Their units hit hard and swing wide, and Vikings embrace their Nordic roots by wielding ice magic, calling frost giants, and powerful ice dragons. They buff their attack stats and have a lot of AoE cleave attacks as well as magic that frees enemy units for a single turn. Crusaders wield the power of knights, angels, and holy magic. There are a lot of healing spells, resurrection spells, and strong buffs to both attack and health. Warlocks are the spellcasting class, so they have a lot of spells that deal direct damage to any and all things, and the units they do play reward you for casting so many spells. Pirates express their love for thievery with the contraband and treasure keywords. Contraband effects produce random cards from colors other than the ones in your deck, so think Thief Rogue from Hearthstone, and treasure is similar to Magic the Gathering's treasure tokens in that they act as gold that can be saved between turns and spent whenever they're needed. If you like a highly adaptive playstyle and enjoy adjusting your strategy on the fly, then pirates are a very fun class to play. Ninjas are probably my favorite class. So sorry, but I'm going to explain this one a little more, but ninjas love bouncing or return to hand effects. So the cool thing about ninjas is that they do a little more than just bounce cards, and instead they use the replace keyword. Units in your hand with this keyword can replace your friendly units on the board, swapping positions with them in essence. The unit on the board is now the one in your hand, and vice versa. The interesting thing is that the way replace is worded is that the unit on the board is transforming into the unit that is replacing it, meaning that if the unit on the board has no summoning sickness, neither will the unit that is replacing it. So I'm having a lot of fun with that effect for sure. Druids are all about nature and beasts. They tend to summon multiple units either on summon or on death, and a lot of the beasts have very big and threatening stats. Undead is a new class to Cards and Castles and is most reminiscent of the black color in Magic the Gathering. There are a lot of removal cards, and there are a lot of cards that benefit from units dying. A lot of decks play the Reaper, a card that at the start of the game makes it so that every unit on both sides of the board that costs more than 3 leave a tombstone upon death, which not only act as obstacles on the board, but they also act as points for certain effects to take advantage of. Zethic, for example, is a legendary card that destroys all the tombstones on the board and summons zombies from them. There's a lot of creativity to express and combinations you can do that comes with being able to use two classes. Pirates have a lot of strong effects that generate you cards and resources, so it pairs very nicely with Ninja's innate ability to bounce and replay the pirates, for instance. Undead have powerful last will effects, and so you can trigger those effects multiple times by resurrecting them by using the Crusader spells. There's a lot of room to explore, and the coolest thing about this is that you can test any and all of these things for free. Yeah, for free. Cards and Castles 2 has some of the most free-to-play friendly features out there, including their training mode. In training mode, you are able to build a deck with any amount of unowned cards and test them out against an AI opponent. You're not just going to be able to test your opening draws, but you would actually be able to test how your deck functions and how all the different cards can interact with each other and your opponent's cards. That's insane. Imagine if you are able to do that in Master Duel or any other card game so that you can test all the meta decks before you spend your crafting material. You'd be able to make sure that you're able to understand how the deck performs, if you're able to play it, and more importantly, if it's fun. I've never seen this feature implemented in any collectible card game, and I gotta say, this is by far my most favorite user-friendly one. With just that feature, you can absolutely enjoy yourself as a free-to-play player. Being able to test out any deck before building it means you can make anything that is fun or competitive. Cards and Castles 2 has a lot of free card points to award you with daily quests and challenges for you to buy a bunch of card packs as well. These quests can be accomplished by just playing against the AI, meaning you don't have to play multiplayer and wait for another person to react to a deck that you made purely just to farm resources. You can also change the difficulty settings of the AI to give you a much easier time when farming quests so that you can save as much time as possible. What I like the most about Cards and Castles 2 is just how respectful of your time it is. Free-to-play players often fall under the trap of playing their favorite games in very unintuitive and unfun ways in order to farm the in-game currency. Master Duel, for example, doesn't let you complete missions and farm gems in casual or solo mode. This places numerous obstacles in the path of the player in order to farm precious playtime on their application. You can clearly see that with a lot of these games, it's like the game is contending with the player and purposefully making it difficult to enjoy. Cards and Castles 2 is at the total other end of that spectrum of just letting you do things and play their game in any way you'd like. Shocking, I know. So I definitely think this game is worth giving a shot. There are a ton of decks to test out and try, and they even have this nifty little deck recipe feature to help get you started. I've actually built two of my decks, Pirate Bounce and Rabbit Dupe, using this deck recipe feature, and these decks have a surprising amount of strategy and effectiveness built into them. They're not like a lot of pre-built decks in other games that are built with bulk in them so that you can buy multiple copies and make them work. Like many other online card games, cards can be destroyed for crafting material, which you can use to craft other cards. So for me, as someone who likes to limit test and play the most effective decks for a class, I can basically destroy all the cards and classes I'm not interested in so that I can build strong cards that belong to the classes I do like. Another great thing about Cards and Castles 2 is that it's being made by a small team and not a monstrous corporate entity. This means that you get frequent updates and a lot of opportunity to give your feedback as a community. And I think that for these type of games, that is a huge perk to have. So yeah, that's Cards and Castles 2. This is the best time to hop in the game as it just released on November 6th. So definitely give it a shot, and thank you again Red Team Games for sponsoring this video review. The only criticism I have for this game is that I can't filter and sort my rarities in the card crafting menu, making it hard to know how many cards of a certain rarity I can destroy in order to craft other ones. But that's literally about it. There are a ton of features in Cards and Castles 2 that I didn't go over in depth that I do like. For one, you can freely chat with other players in lobbies. In fact, whenever you queue and matchmake, you and your opponents actually hop into a lobby with other players. So you can chat and talk about whatever you want with your opponent and other people in the room. This really makes it feel like you're playing at a card shop where often you're playing side by side with other players doing their game. I think that goes a long way towards making card games a nice social experience rather than something that is strictly competitive and mentally draining. Make sure again you guys use my promo code REDNEW in order to redeem your 5 free booster packs. As another tip, use the code STEAM if you're downloading this on Steam, or iOS or Android if you're using your phone device. Link all your devices and use all those codes as well if you want so many free packs. Let me know in the comments what you think about this game, because I think it's a lot of fun and I'm totally interested in hearing about your guys' experience. Take care, be safe. My name's RedNew and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.